Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of Cinematic Realms. And this is the first of a new day and time. I'm going to be doing this from now on Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's pretty much just so that I can keep doing it every week because work was getting in the way. So I think this will be much better for all of us than Thursdays in the middle of the day. Um, my guest today is the lovely Kelly. You guys know her as jdedredhed. And we're going to be talking about a relatively new series for me because usually I'm doing stuff that's years and years old. This is from 2018. It's called The Terror. We'll just start off. Kelly, why don't you introduce yourself, should there be anybody not from our group watching, and just tell them a bit about what you do.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Kelly, also known as Jaded Redhead. Um, I work as a historical interpreter. I am a historian and a tall ship sailor. I have sailed and maintained tall ships, so I just assume, yes, boatsy boats. I assume that I am here to just answer boaty questions, but also to chat about the show.
Yeah, we've kind of been wanting to do something together for a while because we've primarily been talking about Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, which I want everybody to know is coming. I just have to orchestrate, when everybody's available, because somehow I wound up with a panel for Master and Commander. There's going to be, about four of us. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. But so basically all I want to do today is just, we'll kind of probably go back and forth on our different viewpoints on this show. Me talking from, obviously I'm probably going to be talking about, the acting, characterization, uh, and cinematography, all that good stuff. And then just, you want to just talk about your perspective, on it, and we'll just kind of go from there. Real quick, I just want to say hi to everybody who's shown up. I was kind of nervous about switching to the new time if people would come on by, because I know I did another late night weekend stream once, and I think Leaf and Anna were here, and that was about it.
Oh, oh, bless them.
Yeah. So it's nice to see Ridiculous Ed and Tollett and Sean. Thanks for coming by. Danny McKay, Leaf, of course, as always. Always appreciate you being here, Leaf. Aaron, one of my arch nemesis. Kate, lovely to have you here. Thanks, guys. And so, first, I just want to tackle like general impressions because actually, hold on a second, guys. Little technical snafu. Give me a second. Because I have just realized that I didn't have my more expensive microphone plugged in. So I've been
Fix that. Yes.
through the computer microphone, and I'll be darned if I had paid for this thing and I'm not using it. So
I know, right?
If for some reason you guys can't hear me now because I just screwed with something, let me know.
Yeah. How's the chat going?
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so general impressions, because as I was rewatching this, I suddenly remembered how out there and crazy this show is. And it's really disturbing in parts. So what did you think of the show, Kelly?
I, as far as I found it scary. Thanks a lot, John. But I appreciated the story and the cinematography as well. I thought it was beautifully shot. Um, I'll get into a little bit more detail about uh, what's in the shots. But I loved all the acting. I thought all the acting was very well done. I'm a big fan of just about everyone, as far as like the more familiar names, especially from like Game of Thrones. But yeah, I enjoyed it, even though it did scare me and freak me out a little bit. I did enjoy it. Yes.
Yeah, because there's, especially as it goes on, there's some real stomach churning elements of this show. And I guess because I watched the show back when it came out in 2018, so I remembered it, but I don't think it was this fresh in my head. So I was rewatching it. I'm like, oh God, I hope she went for this because it is a bit much. But speaking of the actors, we'll just name to start off with the leads who were, you know, first of all, we have the two guys who will be familiar to a lot of Game of Thrones fans. We've got Tobias Menzies and Ciaran Hinds as Captain or yeah, Commander James Fitzjames. Or actually, that might be wrong. I'm pretty sure he was
Yes.
captain. Captain, he was a captain in the show, and also Admiral Sir John Franklin. Uh, And yeah, I'm loving how much Tobias Menzies is getting these days because I remember when he was in Rome years back, and then it seemed like I'd see him pop up occasionally in a couple small parts, but it's really ever since he got on Game of Thrones, he's been just popping up everywhere between that, Outlander, now this, and The Crown. So it's great to see him getting a lot of work. And Ciaran Hinds is always really good, but which, by the way, we are going to get into full spoilers here because especially with regards to to Ciaran Hinds' character, it's impossible not to talk spoilers because things that unfold with his character reverberate through the entire series. But before we get into that, the other really the star of this show is Jared Harris, who plays Captain Francis Crozier, and you know, some of you may know him from Mad Men and also The Expanse. He's quickly become one of my favorite actors.
Agreed.
And I think that this show kind of you know, it's a huge cast. There are so many people on this show that I think my first time through, I didn't really necessarily. There are so many. Oh, I'm hearing an echo.
Sorry, that's me. I'm
It's all
trying
right.
to I'm trying to send a link to some friends.
And so, yeah, but those are our three primary characters. Did you want to talk a bit about, you know, did you have a favorite amongst those three, or what did you think of their performances in this?
Well, Jared Harris was in To the Ends of the Earth. John. I'm not sure if did you see that? It
No,
it's a
I
it's
don't think I did.
it, it's older. It's one of the earlier Benedict Cumberbatch performances. Jared Harris was the captain of the ship he was on, and he was a bastard, but I absolutely loved him. He was a typical captain, ship's captain, very similar time period as well. So this is not his first role as a tall ship captain.
And he kind of, yeah, it's funny you talk about him being a bit of a bastard in this. He is our sort of central protagonist in this, but his character does go through phases of, you know, we're rooting for him at some turns, and at other turns he's quite unstable. So he's not
Yes.
always necessarily a great guy.
Well, and I there's a lot of things that I want to get into about shipboard life and the role of a captain, especially on a ship of this caliber.
Yeah, go ahead.
And in many cases, and I don't, I'm going to hold back a little bit for specifically the master and commander discussion, but in many cases, it is required for a captain of a ship to be a a complete tyrant. It is a role that is required of the captain. So if when we see portrayals of captains of ships from like the Age of Sail, or even modern day captains in the war movies that we love, commanders in war movies that we love, they can be strong-willed, they can be jerks, they can be bastards, they can be tyrants. In many cases, that situation is absolutely necessary. So
Yeah.
when it comes to the character of Francis Crozier, I think he has his flaws, but we love him nonetheless. And even though he is going through it, we are still rooting for him.
Yeah. I guess I'm going to step back for a second because it's sort of one of the things that I'm used to doing is a lot of people necessarily knowing the plot of what I'm talking about. But in this case, a lot of people probably haven't seen this show. So basically, you have these two ships and their crews are trying to find their way through to the Northwest Passage. Basically, they're exploring the Arctic. And those two ships are the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror. The Terror being commanded by Crozier and then the Erebus commanded by Sir John Franklin. And it transpires that because of Sir Franklin's hubris, they get stuck out in the middle of the Arctic. And so basically the show is about their trying to survive. But that's not all. There's a supernatural element thrown in for good measure for the show. And so they're being hunted by what they think is a bear, but it's essentially a monster.
So, John, I want to say
I
think we're going to talk about the monster and the villain as two different elements. And I think you know what I'm talking about. See, John teases me with the whole master and commander. I'm thinking, adventure, action adventure, swashbuckling. I'm going to talk about. No, now we're talking about a demon polar bear and starvation on icebergs. Here we go.
Which is funny because this is coming on the heels of my last stream was Alien, and really one of the ways I've kind of explained this show or teased it is Master and Commander meets Alien in a way. Because while the creature is not, it's not a xenomorph from Alien, but it sort of serves that same function of it's hunting down these members of the crew. And what's really terrifying is sort of what's going on psychologically with all the characters. And you mentioned villain. And what a great villain we have, known as Cornelius Hickey, which is his name. Who I was really interested going back to watch this a second time, because after I watched it for the first time, it's like, yeah, he's our villain. He's a despicable person. But what's interesting is the show doesn't start off presenting him that way necessarily. He's actually, in some ways, it starts off sympathetic. There's the scene where they're burying, one of their own, and the lid off of the coffin comes off, and he's the one who jumps down to put it back on. And, he has that conversation with Crozier where it's like, this guy is, the captain's warming up to this guy, and we're shown his relationship with one of the other members of the crew, and we're like, maybe this is one of our protagonists, but he turns out to be like the worst possible kind of person.
See, John, I actually I didn't like him from the get-go. He in his first scene, when he comes down to have dinner with the crew, the rest of the crew, and he is speculating with the other crew members about the ship's dog official rank, and there's already a little bit of animosity with the way he is referring to the respect that a dog gets versus the respect a man gets. And I was already like, that's the one who eats the dog. I just know it. That's I just know it. Okay, so may I give kind of a historical breakdown
Yeah,
on this
go ahead.
story? Full disclosure, I have not read the book that this show is based on. The Terror by Dan Simmons was written in 2006. Now, I have not. So when it comes to some elements of the story that's in the show, that I'm critical of, I don't know if it's something that the show pulled from the books or not, or if it was added to the show for flavor. So there's some things that I don't know. So there's going to be some elements that I have a serious problem with. I don't know if they are actually uh, uh, in the book by Dan Simmons. So
Yeah, I haven't read the book myself, so I won't be a huge help in that regard. But go ahead.
so the HMS Terror and the HMS Erebus were originally built as bomb vessels. Now, this does not mean fire ship like we think about, lighting a ship on fire and sending in full-on Blackwater Bay status. A bomb vessel in the early 19th century is a floating platform for mortar fire. So you have a platform on ships that it's very much like a barge. So there's not going to be a lot of freeboard, which means the amount of ship above the water. So it's not going to be one of those huge dramatic ship of the lines. It's not going to be one of those large frigates that we see in Master and Commander. These ships are small. The original HMS Terror was built in 1812. The Erebus was built in 1823. The HMS Terror was used against the United States during the War of 1812 and helped in the bombardment of Fort McHenry, which for you other historians know that the Star Spangled Banner, that's what it's written based on. So the HMS Terror sailed by my neighborhood pretty much at one point. So that's kind of exciting. They're both a little over 100 feet long. And they were added or they were reinforced before this particular expedition. There was iron plating added fore and aft for ice breaking. The decks were cross planked to distribute impact forces. So when they are coming through lighter ice, the idea is the ice is just going to kind of repel or be split and move aside. So the book was written before the wrecks were discovered. These two ships have been discovered in recent years. Now, the Erebus was the first. She was discovered in 2014, and the Terror was discovered in 2016. So these two wrecks were discovered after the book. The Terror was discovered September 12th, 2016. So, yes, today is the anniversary. And according to Ice Ghost by Paul Watson, who did some research when it was first discovered, let me go to my timeline because it's September 12th is, I believe, the date that is recorded of the Terror actually getting stuck in ice.
Which That's just wild to me. Because I'll be honest, folks, it was a happy accident that the stream was on September 12th. And the fact that there's already the coincidence of two other September 12th already factoring into the story, it was just a little wild to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, so 1846, September 12th, Terror and Erebus trapped in ice. Now, a lot of these vessels, these bomb vessels that were built by England, had these names that were reminiscent of hellscapes, pretty much. So Erebus, the darker side of Hades, and of course terror, self-explanatory. Let me see. I'm going through. I have a lot of files. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, I messaged John. I said, "Are you doing September 12th on purpose?" And he goes, "Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah, yeah." Okay, so okay. Let me give you a rundown on some of these names of other bomb vessels. HMS Fury. Let me see here. HMS Hecla, HMS Infernal, HMS Meteor, HMS Etna, HMS Sulphur, HMS Thunder, HMS Vesuvius, HMS Devastation, HMS Volcano, HMS Beelzebub, HMS Erebus. Yeah, I think that's it. So these are I as far as the first couple of episodes, we are for the most part on board ship, and then all hell breaks loose. So I will talk a little bit about the ship situation, and then I'll get into a little bit more of the story, if you like.
Yeah, that's fine. I do want to point out while we're talking about the ships themselves, something that kind of threw me for a loop because I found out after watching the first couple episodes was that this show was filmed entirely on sets. So all of the stuff you see is set against green screen. And I was, it just sort of amazed me because it shows how far visual effects have come. Because I think that something like that would have looked really, really fake a number of years ago. And I was actually impressed with the realism that they achieved. And now I think it's going to get even better since we're moving on to visual effects, like we've seen in The Mandalorian with what are essentially giant video screens. So they're not even going to be having to deal with green screen technology anymore. But okay, that's my digression about visual effects.
Full
Go.
100% agree. It was beautiful. I thought as far as the sets go, anytime they were outside in the elements, oh my gosh, I was convinced. Whether they were on the water, on the ice, or on land, it was, oh my gosh, it was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
Very convincing. The opening shot where you have so you have the title cards as the show opens, and you have the pretty much the interview where there is someone who is searching for these men, speaking with a gentleman from the next. That's Aaron. Girl, I love you. Thank you. From the Netsilik people in northern Canada, and he's saying, he says everyone's gone. Everyone is gone. Don't bother looking. And then you have
Which that's a hell of an opening.
yes.
Like to set
Well,
the stage.
if as far as knowing the history, that is what happened. Uh, these these people were never heard from again. There were no survivors as far as the history books are concerned. So you kind of go into the show knowing this, like all these people are doomed. Okay, hooray, great. Okay, let's see how this plays out. So the overhead shot, John, do you remember that? It's pretty much, it has the Arctic landscape, and then the camera pans down to these two tiny little lines coming through the ice, and it's the two ships. And I thought that was stunning. I said, that is gorgeous. It is terrifying, but gorgeous.
It's like, who in their right minds would sign up for this? Would you? I'm saying that from the perspective of somebody who is not involved.
I was tempted. I did have someone message me about possibly working on one of the Viking ships, the actual replica Viking ships, the larger one that was going to make a transatlantic voyage, a northern transatlantic voyage. And I said, they're living on a cabin built on the deck. I ain't doing that. I am a wuss when it comes to heat. I'm a wuss when it comes to cold. I just I don't want to.
Yeah. God, and so it's kind of, and I'm sort of building up to talking about another series of shots, but that whole first episode is really setting up the different perspectives of Sir John and Francis, where you know Francis is pretty much like, you have no idea how bad this is gonna get, and Sir John is just like, he's very much all about, he believes that almost in like a higher purpose, like their own ingenuity will get them through. And yes, it all builds to the ending of that episode where he comes out the next morning and sees them all like trapped in this solid ice, and it's just the look on his face, and when it just shows those two ships just trapped there, and to give an image of like they're in water at one point with a lot of ice, but then it turns into this. It's like, man, that has to be like the most frightening thing in the world.
So as far as like the very first episode, when it opens up and you have when it's actually Jared Harris's first scene, when he is getting dressed for the dinner as Sir John and James Fitzjames are coming aboard. He's getting ready and he says, "You're in the Discovery service. Close is nothing. It's worse than nothing. It's worse than anything in the world." So they are trying to be the first through the Northwest Passage. Anything less than that it's worse than nothing. It's just a waste of everything that has been done if they can't do that.
That was really haunting for me, because then that same officer, then when Francis finds him near the end of the series, under different circumstances, what he says to him, he can barely speak. It's like his last breath, and he says, "Close," as a question. So it's just calling back to that moment, and it's it's horrifying.
Yes. So the dinner scene, let's talk a little bit about that. I do like the fact that it was very realistic, as 8 officers are crowded around this very small table. They are shoulder to shoulder, and you can see like the epaulets are just like right up against each other. So it is very crowded, and I was so tempted. to say, can someone come get Uncle Edmure? Because Tobias Menzies is, going on about the story, and it's something that Francis was saying, like, oh, he'll probably tell this story or that story about how he was shot by a Chinese sniper, and that's the story he's telling. So it's like, someone come get Uncle Edmure, please. Just put him to bed. And I do like the dynamic that happens later on, because you think you're not going to like James Fitzjames. You think you're not going to like his character, but I ended up absolutely loving him, and he made me cry.
Yeah. I guess I'll go ahead and spoil this element now. We'll probably get into it in a bit more detail, but it needs to be spoiled so so we can talk about their dynamic. Basically, Sir John is not long for this world. He ends up, you think Ciaran Hinds is going to be the lead of this show, and he basically bites it in the third episode. But what that does
Bites.
is,
Ha 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 ha.
yeah, exactly. But what that does is that puts Captain Francis and James Fitzjames in a position where they have to work together, and there's a mutual respect that builds throughout. And there's that scene in episode 8 where they're walking side by side, and it culminates in the line, "Are we brothers, Francis? I would like that very much." And it just shows how their relationship has evolved from disdain to that sense of brotherhood and friendship. I loved it.
Yes, that I loved that bonding scene. Was very sweet, and it wasn't. It was very subtle and so well acted, because they're in this vast landscape, but you're so kind of locked into everything they're saying to each other, that really, like, when James is pretty much telling his story, you are so locked into his words. There's nothing else really going on, which of course, excellent acting, excellent writing. I want to talk about the opening sequence.
Yep, go ahead.
So I love it. What do you think?
Oh, the opening credit sequence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's great. It's creepy. The musical score. It's like it's funny because I usually always go on and on about how I like really fantastic, like sort of instrumental themes, and this is not that. It's basically 30-40 seconds of creepy music.
Yes. Dramatic, creepy.
Yeah, and just all these, the way it's designed, creepy is the word for the whole opening sequence. You've got these sort of random shots of, like, when the one guy is descending into the water, and then it shows the characters of Sir John, James and Francis. And one detail I noticed this time around watching the show was that as the sequence shows, like, it sort of shows their faces almost melting away.
Yes.
And you can see the skulls beneath Sir John and James's faces, but not with Francis, which is
right.
a subtle indication that maybe he survives after all.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a neat little thing to throw in there. But yeah, that's one of those things. I always talk about opening credit sequences as being like a really vital part of a show. So that I hate it when you're watching something on a streaming service and it says, skip the opening credits, because it sets the mood and it, like, puts you on the edge of your seat right off the bat. And
yes.
yeah. So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big thumbs up.
The song was. I'm just going to look at my notes really quick. The song was nominated Online Film and Television Association 2019. It was nominated for Best New Theme Song in a Series. So there's quite a list of nominations that this show has, and a couple of winners.
Yeah, I was just looking up the composer's name, and there is no way I'm going to pronounce that. His first name is Marcus, and it starts with an F, his last name, but I'm just going to butcher it. So I'll just say, look it up.
Okay.
But yeah, it's in a horror story. It is all about the music. It needs to set you on edge without necessarily being overpowering too. And I think this really sort of fits the bill. But yeah, it's so jumping off of what we were just talking about with Francis and James, I do want to sort of take time to go through some of the characters. And
okay.
Since we haven't talked about Sir John a great deal yet, let's go ahead and tackle him. He's played by Ciaran Hinds, and although we only get him for 3 episodes, I do think he's interesting just in sort of how overly confident he is, and it's sort of a fatal flaw. Although that doesn't mean he deserves what he gets in the least bit. Poor guy. And we are going to talk about that death scene, because that is one of the most freaky, disturbing things I can remember seeing. But it's interesting that the show starts off with the 3 of them, and if you don't know your history, which I certainly didn't, you may think that you're going to get Sir John for a good portion of the show. But it does sort of set him up to leave, eventually, because you've got lines like when he's talking to James, he says, he's my second, and if something should happen to me, you would be his second. So it's like, they're not going to say that unless that's going to come to pass. Yeah. And then there's another line when when they have one of the guys descending into the water to free up the ice that's caught in the propeller blade. And when he comes back up, and Sir John says, "I'm quite envious. I've always wanted to go below." And that's a really creepy foreshadow.
Oh, I did not. Oh no, John. Oh no, I didn't even think that. So can we talk about that scene, the diver scene specifically with Mr. Collins? Okay, and this happens throughout the show, not in every episode, but it seems to build tension. There are 2 scenes happening at the same time, and they're pretty much playing off of each other. Sometimes they are complementary, sometimes they're contradicting each other. So when it comes to David Young's autopsy and the diver scene with Mr. Collins cutting away the ice and Mr. Goodsir, the surgeon, cutting David's sternum open, there is a buildup, and I appreciate the way it's done and the purpose of it. I hate it. I don't like horror movies. I don't like being scared. So when these things are happening, I am not watching the screen.
Perhaps this is something I should have asked you before I told you.
My husband had to tell me what happened. So he's like, I think there's a body. There's a body. I said, oh my God. I said, I can't. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, because there's an earlier scene in which somebody goes overboard, and they're just lost because the water is so cold. They're dead
And
within
of
moments.
course, it is Mr. Collins who wants to jump in, and they pull him back, saying, "You can't, you can't
Yeah,
jump in." And I do want to talk a little bit later on about mental health in regards to Mr. Collins.
yeah,
Very,
uh,
very good character, by the way.
yeah. I want to compliment you because you're doing better on the names than I
Well,
do.
I watched it. John, you messaged me last week to ask me if I can do this stream, so I watched the whole show, all 10 episodes this week, and then I rewatched it. I rewatched the first 3 to 4 ish episodes. Mostly, it was just going back over the boat stuff because
Yeah.
that's what I'm all about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, but going back to talking about the body, that is, and maybe you don't know if you had your eyes shut, but but that is just a really creepy shot. Just it's like the silhouette of the body just floating towards him in the water.
Oh my god. Okay.
And he just like immediately was like, pull me up, pull me up.
The Unfortunately, I did not turn away in time for Mr. Collins's death scene, and that was by far the worst. It was the worst, and of course, it's the one that I did not look away in time. I'm just like, okay, I'm I'm not okay. I'm not gonna sleep tonight. Ugh. Um. So, um, I want to talk a little bit about when when they're over dinner and they're discussing the ice flows and how they're noticing, oh, this seems like old ice, and Sir John is like, our master thinks that it's an ice flow from the north, from a channel coming in from the north, and Francis is like, I don't know about this, and after I think it's just before it was just before the opening credits in episode 1 where David gets sick, and then of course it goes into the music. Do you know when they refer to a sundog? Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
It's that ring around the sun that they
Okay.
show in the opening credits, and Francis looked at it 2 or 3 times, and he does ask Captain James Fitzjames, did you see the sun dog? This is what happens. You can see an ice dog, or I'm sorry, an ice dog, a sun dog almost anywhere in the world. It just happens. The conditions have to be right. In this case, up in the Arctic Circle, there's so many ice crystals in the air. It creates a. It's essentially a rainbow around the sun, in the same sense as we see a rainbow through water vapor. It's just ice crystals instead of water vapor. And it looks like, if you can see the entire circle, it looks like 4 suns around the sun in the middle. I've seen a sundog once, and I've only seen it because the cloud cover was right conditions. So really, really high cirrus clouds, like higher level atmospheric clouds, you can actually see a sundog. And if sometimes it looks like 2 different suns. So it's very creepy, and it is shown in episode 1 or 2. And now, no, it's not. Oh God, Mr. Collins at your service. No, that's when I hear the name Mr. Collins, that is what I thought of too, Aaron. Yes. I was like,
Um,
oh, poor
and
Mr.
no, it
Collins.
wouldn't have been that bad if it was him. Unfortunately, it was not.
Yeah. But the just before the as David is dying, and he is, well, we say hallucinating, seeing the shaman, and he starts screaming, it wants us to run. It wants us to run. That's also at the same time one of the crew members is going aloft, and they pretty much see, or I guess they heard it on watch. They heard the ice ahead of them, and they're just like, there's a lot of ice out there. There's a lot of ice. So that it was just these dual scenes happening at the same time, just building tension and working off of each other. It's it's freaky. It's creepy. It's freaky. I don't like it. I understand, but I don't like it.
Yeah,
I'm not here for the tension.
that editing really is brilliant, and just uh, because it's sort of inherently creepy when it's bad enough when you're watching a scene and you're waiting for something bad to happen, but when it's like two separate scenes and they keep cutting back and forth, and
something will happen, but which scene is it, and how bad is it going to be, and like which scene is it? Because it keeps going back and forth. Yeah.
And I really do love that, as you say, hallucination, because first of all, it's creepy as hell because the shaman or whoever, has like this thing on his head. It's like, I don't know what that is, some kind of wooden shape that I don't know. It's like, okay, that's creepy. And then, it scares the crap out of, the guy who's dying, and he just dies. And then you go to the next scene where Mr. Goodsir is trying to tell the actual doctor like what happened, and he's disregarding it. And as a viewer, you're just like, no, tell somebody else. Go to the captain. Of course he can't, but it's like, no, tell somebody who's more superstitious than this guy.
Immediately, I did not like that particular doctor, and that was Dr. Stanley. When Dr. McDonald is explaining what's wrong with David to the captains and to Sir John, the actor, John, you have not watched Downton Abbey, right?
I haven't. I really want to.
I truly believe you will absolutely love that show. This actor was in Downton Abbey, and he played a really great character. And I immediately, as soon as I saw him, I liked him. And I was like, I like this guy for some reason. I just don't know why. His name was Charles Edwards. In Downton Abbey, he played Michael Gregson. For everyone out there who knows or didn't know, but he's a lot more affectionate and understanding doctor of the two, and Dr. Stanley immediately just puts you off because of how critical and dismissive he is in regards to everything, it seems. Like, oh, this is just a heartless bastard.
But then that sort of also kind of, it sets you up to not see what's coming with his character because he seems so straight-laced and like nothing phases him. But so you don't see that he's slowly losing his mind. And then you have the climax of a later episode where they're having their big party, and he decides, upon getting the news that the food in the tins is poisonous, essentially, he decides he's going to set everybody on fire.
That did throw me off as well. Yes, I was just like, oh, he's someone's setting everything on fire, and I thought I knew who it was, and then when I saw who it was, I was like, I said, oh, and then he started pouring it on himself, and I was like, oh, he's going full Taliban. He's just
this is what's so funny is because you've gotten to the point where you hate Hickey so much, and rightfully so, that even watching this a second time, I could have sworn it was him that was doing it. I forgot that it was the doctor. And
Yeah.
because you're just waiting, and it's not unwarranted, because obviously the further the series goes along, the more horrible stuff that Hickey ends up doing. But that's the whole reason that really you're caught off guard in that moment, and it's just downright shocking.
Can we talk about Ian Hart?
Yes, he's
Okay.
so good in this.
Yes. I love Ian Hart as an actor. Of course, I did not like him as Professor Quirrell in Harry Potter. So we have like,
Oh my God, that is him.
John.
I like completely forgot that was him until now, and he looks so completely different.
Yes. He's in I think it's My Big Fat Diary. And he's got more of a Scottish accent. But and he plays a like a therapist, like a doctor in that, and I absolutely love his character. But I love his character. He is Mr. Blankie. He is a master, essentially a master of ice. So he studies ice flows, and he's a freaking badass. Like in my opinion, in this show, I loved his character. I love the relationship between him and Francis.
Yeah, because Francis trusts him implicitly, and so I feel like that automatically, makes us like the character, because you have Francis, who's pretty much critical of everybody, but the fact that he trusts Mr. Blankie so much, it's immediately we know that this is a guy who's got his shit together, basically.
Yeah, yeah. When seeing him after they go aloft and they're discussing the ice, and they are in the main top. They're pretty much on the gallant mast, and they're coming down, and I'm like, that's awesome. Just coming down from the rig. Yeah, Ian Hart is a is a sweetheart, and his, sorry about the spoilers, but his death, badass, badass.
I
He
mean,
was just like, bring it.
and he covers himself in forks, like pointing up, just to make it uncomfortable for when
yeah.
Tumbach bites down.
Yes, and when it comes to, he's one of the first to actually injure the monster. By the way, the monsters is referred to as Tumbach, which, John, I don't know if you heard it the way I heard it, but I heard turn back. That's
No, I didn't, but yeah,
for me. That's all I hear. I'm like, okay, we're we're having another moment. We should turn back. Okay, sorry. So, yes,
but yeah,
yes. Ian Hart played Professor Quirrell, John.
Yeah, that's just. I didn't even put the two together, because he looks shorter in stature in this. Maybe it's because some of the other actors are tall.
It's the turban. I think it's the turban.
You know what? You're right.
Yes.
That's what does it in Harry Potter. That's what makes him look taller.
Yes. Okay, we're good.
But anyways, it's just like they are such polar opposite characters. It's just Quirrell is such a little weasel.
Yeah.
and Mr. Blankie is such a badass. So yeah. I never would have made that connection, and now I'm like, how did I not see it?
Um, so I'd like to talk a little. I want to. I want to. My main gripe, not about historical, not about historical accuracy in this regard, um, but the fact that Mr. Hickey um, is one of the few, as it is portrayed, potentially gay characters or homosexual. The way he is betrayed or portrayed is he is manipulative. He is psychopathic. He is seductive. Anything sincere or any humility, it is feigned in his regard. He is very he's evil. As far as the relationship between him and Billy, there was some kind of sexual relationship happening on the ship, and the way it's kind of portrayed is on one side it was potentially non-consensual, but because of the relationship he has with Billy after the confrontation, it is most likely he convinced Billy or he seduced him essentially. So Billy might be gay as well. Unfortunately, these two characters end up leading the mutiny essentially later on, and I it's really disappointing in 2018 that the villain is also gay potentially. I think that's a trope that needs to die. Um, a faster death than Mr. Collins's death. So when it comes to something like in the time period, the portrayal of buggery, and I don't like that word. It's sodomy, um, and it was in this time period. Of course, it is considered one of the highest sins, right up there with cannibalism. So, and we get there later on. So when it comes to the villain of the show, and yes, I consider this crew member the evil villain of the show. Yeah, there's a monster. Yeah, that's not the villain though. It's Mr. Hickey is the villain. And when you talked about the scene with him bonding with Francis, when Francis makes a note like you don't sound like you're from Limerick, or I think that was what he said. He doesn't sound Irish, and he says I've had to adapt. Then he uses a derogatory term for Irish people. He says us mix have to stick together, and Francis immediately is just like,
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, I don't think that's a good idea to use that word ever again. Um, I do like the fact that when Hickey is trying to tell Billy, like, oh, I buddied up with the captain, and Billy is just like, he only gave you a drink so that he could have one too. I loved that the fact that was thrown back in his face. I was like, ooh. But yeah, as far as like his every manner of depravity, and he's just evil, and he is the villain of the story, and his death scene should have been way longer because I was gonna make myself watch him get killed by the monster. No matter how graphic it was, I was gonna make myself watch, and it wasn't long enough. It wasn't graphic enough, in my opinion.
It was really fitting, though.
Yes, yeah, that it was. Yeah, yeah,
The fact that
poetic.
he thinks he's going to be able to actually control and Tunbach And of course, Tupac is like, nope, and just proceeds to bite his arm off and underestimate. And then Francis uses Hickey to basically to kill Tupac by having him choke on him.
Yes.
Which is yeah, I will say that your criticism did occur to me as I was watching it a second time, although what I do like is it's not the only homosexual relationship shown in the show, and maybe this is open to interpretation, but I very much saw the relationship between I'm trying to think of their names. The older man, John Bridgens, who helps as
Yes.
who helps Mr. Goodsir once all the doctors have gone.
Yeah, all the doctors are dead. I guess it'll help. Yeah.
And also the young man that he has a relationship with. It starts off ambiguous, but it's clear to me by the end that he was in love with him.
He did love him, yes.
Yeah. So I do like that. That's sort of the counterpoint to Hickey's relationship with God. Yeah, I'm struggling with
so the I think it was Pegler. I think Kevin Guthrie was Pegler. Because he's very sick at the very end, and he dies, and shortly after Bridgens dies. Pegler or Kevin Guthrie, the actor that played him, was also in a Harry Potter movie. He did you ever see Fantastic Beasts?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not that much, so I probably
okay.
Wouldn't recognize
He's
him.
Abernathy. He's Newt's brother, I believe. Yeah, he plays Abernathy. But when I saw him, I was like, I know that guy, because I think he's really hot. And I was like, I know that guy. I was like, oh, who is this guy? But yeah, it's Abernathy. So I was like, man, all these Harry Potter guys. Love it. Harry Potter and Game of Thrones guys in this show.
Yeah. So even though on the one hand, I think you're right. I think it's a trope that unfortunately, I don't think necessarily showing the villain in a romantic relationship in of itself is necessarily a bad thing, but it's just been done to death so much that maybe they could have gone without it. But like I said, I did like the fact that they showed a very good relationship.
I think there were some very good, as far as relationships, non-romantic relationships, male bonding that is, not romantic, is beautiful and wholesome and needs to be portrayed more. And this is something that that happens when you throw a bunch of dudes together. This is what naturally occurs. There has to be bonding, or you're going to your mind is going to break, unfortunately, without that other human contact. And the nature of the isolation of what they're going through is going to affect their relationships and dynamics with each other.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for coming
by.
And I do really like, honestly, that the relationship between Lady Silence and Goodsir is shown to not be romantic.
Right.
And that they have a very close bond that develops. And it's just heartbreaking to me when you get towards the end and when, good sir has killed himself in an effort to, poison the others, because by that point they've resorted to cannibalism. Resorted makes it sound like they were forced into that, but Hickey is really all in about going
Yeah, that's
there.
again. I was like, that guy eats the dog. I just
Yeah.
that guy's gonna eat the dog. I just know it.
But when she comes upon his body having been carved up, and just the heartbreak on her face, because he really was like, the pure soul among,
Oh yeah.
you know,
The actor
among
Paul Reddy, he was also nominated for Best Supporting Actor for one of the awards. Let me look at my cheat sheet real quick. Let's see. I think it was Satellite Awards, Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress. I think you pronounce it Neve Nielsen.
yeah.
Lady Silence, and I loved her character as well. Now, as far as like the gay villain trope, I don't know if that was written for the show, or I don't know if that was actually in the book. I can't say one versus the other. Again, it's based on a book that was written in 2006.
But I do have to say that, and I'm not going to defend that trope because you're absolutely right about it. But on the other hand, we are dealing with a story in which talking about, with the exception of the character, Lady Silence, is men on ships, and if you're going to have romantic relationships, they can't just populate the ships with female crew members
So
for
Anna
doing
is saying
that.
that it wasn't in the books. So
It wasn't. Okay, so it's in the show.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, one thing I want to add, Amy. The uh, in Paul Watson's book Ice Ghosts, he does say that aboard the ships there was a cat. In the show, they call it Fagin. By the way, a horrible CGI cat. John, did you see that in episode 2? It opens with the cat walking through the engine room.
I did not notice the bad CGI, to be honest.
It's a bad CGI cat. What? Why? Why? You got a dog and you got a monkey. And
Oh, the poor monkey.
they did bring a monkey, Amy, by the way, and his name was Jacko. I don't
Yeah,
know if it was a girl or a boy. In the show, it was a girl monkey, but
Amy, maybe you don't want to watch this because I'm worried that your heart's gonna break for the monkey.
oh, my heart broke for almost everyone in the show. Unfortunately, my I cried a couple of times in the show. Sadly, um, are you familiar with Ernest Shackleton, John? Shackleton's Voyage? He had a kind of a doomed, I'm not going to say doomed voyages because everyone made it. Uh, in 19. Aaron, this sick chick, I love her so much. Uh, um, during Shackleton's voyage, it was 1914, I think. Uh, on the ship, the Endurance, Shackleton and his crew were going to try to be the first to reach the South Pole, and they had with them sled dogs. So they, unfortunately, Endurance got trapped in the ice. Um, the the dogs, one of the dogs has a litter of puppies, and they have to get rid of the puppies. And I cried that part of the book. I understood why, but I cried. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, who kills puppies? And
Yeah,
the thing is, we just said Henry Goodsir was one of the best characters. He's such a good person, and then he poisons
yeah.
the monkey.
He's the one who poisons the monkey. Yeah,
But he says he's sorry, and he's like, it's for the good of the crew. Like, this is something we have to know. Um, it is believed that lead poisoning and botulism killed most of the crew, and later on, the cold and starvation, of course, don't help. But yeah,
yeah. You're
good
right.
times, good times.
Maybe I just didn't want to think about that. Because it is such a horrible sequence. You're kind of like, no, let all the people die. Just leave the poor monkey alone.
I know, don't make the monkey eat the tainted food.
I want to pause right here because we're a little bit over an hour in.
Okay.
So I just wanted to do the mid-roll. So as I said before, we're sticking to Saturdays at 7 p.m. from now on. And I'm really delighted that all of you showed up because this convinces me that this might actually work. So and next week, I am going to be joined by the lovely Amy, and we are going to be doing another Kira stream. This time it's going to be Amy's favorite Kira movie, which will be The Duchess. And yes, I loaded up a picture for next week's preview just so I could pop up a picture of Kira.
The costumes. Yeah. Oh.
So looking forward to that, and yeah, I'll just leave that up for another couple seconds.
I'm not complaining.
It's going to be a great stream. Okay, so yeah, do you have anything you want to talk about that you're doing, Kellen?
Oh, I'm not doing anything. No, I'm just here on the. I'm here to talk boats.
And you will be coming back in a number of weeks because we're going to get on that Master and Commander.
All right. Sounds good.
Stream. I do also just want to take a moment to publicly thank Kelly because she sent me a gift package this week and it was full of comics. Both Hobbit, X-Men, and all kinds of wonderful stuff. And seriously, Kelly, just thank you so much. This all put such a big smile on my face. I got the box in the mail and I was like, oh my God, this is huge. Why is she sending me so much? But thank you. And of course, it wouldn't be me if I didn't acknowledge the real surprise gift that was included in, which was an Elizabeth Swann action figure. For which I will seriously, I love you forever, Kelly. And now I can always have Kira with me in my streams.
I wasn't sure if you were gonna open it or what, if you were gonna have it, kind of mounted on a oh, that sounds dirty. On a microphone. See, I'm thinking of a Cesis microphone with the dragon on the little microphone. I'm thinking a little Elizabeth Swann on the microphone. I think that would be.
Now that's happening.
Yeah.
That is, I had been debating about whether or not I should actually open it. But now you've inspired me. That is going to be a permanent fixture.
Oh, boy.
And it's going to be great.
All right.
So okay, so I've brightened stuff up for a couple minutes. Now we can dive back into the dark depression that is the terror.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Stanley, he was in Rogue One.
Yeah, which he's an ass in that too.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think that's why when I saw him, I was like, I don't like him. It's Draven. Yeah, and I was like, I don't like him. Yeah.
He's the guy that pretty much says, forget what was just talked about in there. You're going to kill the main character's father. It's like, yeah, I don't like him.
Another instance of no one's making it out alive. So, let's talk about some more like super depressing movies. No, I'm just kidding. Let's not.
Um, but yeah, you did. We've talked a bit about. I'm just going to call him Doctor Good Sir because he was the
Okay.
real. He was the
I in
real
my notes I
doctor.
did put him down as Dr. Goodsir. Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
he's such a great character, just because even though he does kill the monkey, um, he is.
Shh, Amy, earmuffs, Amy.
Um, really, he is the moral center of the story, really, and but I think he gets driven to such sort of, you know, he's so demoralized and desperate by the end that he's like, okay, I'm not making it out of here alive, so I'm going to, you know, I'm going to take, you know, the worst of this crew with me, and he plots, by poisoning his own skin so that when they eat him, they'll die.
I thought that was so incredibly brave of him. I thought that was an amazing move. I thought it was brilliant. It's definitely like a boss move. That's like straight gangster. Hell yeah, good sir, do it. And he, tells Francis like, eat the bottoms of my feet, and it's just like, oh, he's gonna like. I was like, oh, okay, okay. This is what I was like. Is he saying that because he doesn't want him to get more lead poisoning because that's what's in him, and it's less likely to be in the soles of his feet? And I'm just like, oh, I see what's happening. Okay,
He's
but
like, everything depends on it. It's like wink, wink. Uh, um, which is just, but okay, but that leads us into the scene where we actually watch, we're watching all of them eat, you know, poor Mr. Good Sir, and Francis is carving off a piece of the
oh,
bottom of his
so
feet.
I was talking to my coworkers about the show today, and I was like, there's some scenes where I wish I had looked away and I didn't. And my friend was like, oh, you mean when the doctor was all cut up on the table? And I was like, no, that didn't bother me. It was like, it was like kind of a human anatomy kind of thing. It was, I could remove myself from it. It was more of the, violent actions happening with, you know, missing and body parts being, removed violently and like disemboweled via monster. Oh, oh
It's
my
like,
gosh.
I kind of feel like the years I spent watching Dexter like prepped me for this though.
Okay.
Because otherwise I think I might have thrown up at some of
I
the
think
later scenes.
I think when he goes over, when he realizes, okay, he can't avoid not eating not eating a person. So when he goes over and grabs a knife, I'm like, oh, he's gonna take a piece off the foot. So he's remembering what he said. So I thought that was a good callback. Like it showed more of an understanding and a partnership between the hero and unfortunately one of the victims. So he was kind of justifying his action. Like, all right, these guys have partook. I'm going to partake, but in the lesser lethal form. And apparently, what happened was after the monster apparently eating the the Aaron, just hold on, just hold on. Okay, so the people having lead poisoning, it's going to get better, Aaron. Yeah. the monster eating the people who were also dying from botulism and lead poisoning was also apparently weakening the monster, which I didn't realize until after reading a little bit more about the show later on. Apparently, the monster was weakened by eating poisoned humans. Like, this human is contaminated.
God.
When Lady Silence tells the crew, "You need to leave," and Francis is like, "We're stuck. We can't take our boats and leave. We're stuck." And she's like, "You need to leave or you're going to disappear." And then it looks like she's going to pull her tongue out, and she does this motion where she pulls something out and then does that. So I don't know if that is representative of the monster eating the souls.
Yeah, which we see towards the end.
I didn't want to see it.
It's just a shot of
I am disturbed.
Just devouring this guy, and then like the face doing this weird thing, and the soul seems to come out. Yeah. Did you enjoy that, Kelly? I can tell you really enjoyed it.
I was just like, damn you, John. What the hell? You're making me watch. I was like, I didn't look away in time. I didn't. That was unnecessary. Oh, Jolie, don't poison food meat. Yeah, the meat in the foot is apparently not toxic. For what this particular hero did was he poisoned himself, all but pretty much his feet, because he knew the crew was going to eat him.
Okay, let's move on from the.
I am traumatized, Jolie. I am.
I do want to go back because I was alluding to this earlier, but it is one of the more disturbing death scenes that I've ever seen. I want to go back to talking about Sir John because
right, okay,
because the fact that he's going out on the ice to stand by the people who are have set a trap for what they think at the time is a bear, and they're like posing for. And okay, actually this just reminded me, this is one of those moments that's what we were talking about, the tension. It's when they're out there having the picture taken, and it's like it's going through the whole motion of showing Mr. Good Sir like waiting for the picture to be taken, removing the thing. It like goes on for like a whole minute, and then they finish taking the picture and it just cuts to commercial break, and it's like, oh, so nothing happened after all. It's like you're just waiting for the worst, and it's not until they go back into the the tent like thing or whatever, and then it just grabs somebody from behind and all hell breaks loose. And then Sir John is running around. He's trying to get back to the ship, starts climbing up the rock. Tumbach grabs him and just drags him to where they buried the shaman and threw him basically down a hole into the ice. It drags him there with his leg, like, he
looks down and there's a stump.
Yeah. And then Tumbach just basically shoves him into the hole, and
so
he just sinks right down there.
At this point, the monster is seeking them out for slaughter, not to eat. Because he doesn't eat Sir John's body. He doesn't even eat his leg. They put the leg in the casket. They put the captain's, because that's all they could find of, so they put the leg in the casket, which is just, I did giggle a little. I was like, that's pretty sad. It's just, it was a very nice leg. They had it dressed in a very fine stocking and shoe. And they
Which
just put
is
the leg in a very nice casket. It's a leg.
it's funny because Sir John was someone who a lot of people liked, but not a whole lot of people really respected him that much. Um, and so there's something like it is humorous in a way, like really darkly humorous that all that's
Yes.
left of him is a leg.
Um,
That's all they can.
so I want to talk a little bit about another duel scene. Um, it's kind of like a callback to when he is being dragged to the hole, he's having flashbacks back in England. Now, the I think it's the end of episode 1 where he's having flashbacks of he and Francis at a theater, and there's an applause happening. Now, it seems like when he comes up on deck and realizes he's gotten them stuck and fucked, and the clapping becomes mockery and just kind of uh, not not a good thing. And there's like an applause, but it's like a sickening kind of applause. And the scenes are played off of each other in that regard. When he is having flashbacks of speaking with his wife, Lady Jane, as she is giving him the monkey, there is also a flashback he is having with Sir John Ross. So the older uh, uh, Sir John, which is played by Clive Russell. So all I
The
can think of is like Blackfish is pissed.
It's
Um,
like it's so funny whenever I see him pop up in something because he has appeared in a lot of things where he's only in there for like a scene or a couple of scenes, and I'm always like, "All right, everything stop! Blackfish is here."
yeah, and I'm just like, more, please, can we have more? Clive Russell. Um, I want to talk about they are referring to an actual expedition that Terror was on prior to this expedition, and that is the Ross expedition. They went to Antarctica, not the Arctic Circle. So they went to the Antarctic Circle. He says, I think, when he's talking about what's your rescue, um, what's what's your rescue plan? I am looking for it. Okay. Um, he says you'll eat your shoes again. You'll eat worse. Death is slow in the great white nothing. 136 men will turn devil against you, and it'll start with the ones closest to you. That's after he says, nothing lives there, nothing grows.
Yeah,
Like great lines. Like, oh man, he
it's
has the
like
best lines ever.
I'm watching that and I'm like, why didn't you send him? He has like some brain cells. Um,
Um,
but
so the scene where Lady Jane and Sophia are asking the board to start a search party, um, it is John, um, Sir John Ross, Clive Russell's character, who does say we either risk money and resources now or we risk men later. So he is very much for that. Just before that, though, the board does pull some patriarchy bullshit. Drink, everybody drink. Uh, so they're they're referring to when they first got when they first got when they last got word from the Franklin expedition, and I forget what island they mentioned, but they said not that you know where that is. And then Sophia is like, actually, yeah, she was speculating that they made it that far or as far as this particular island, but I see she wasn't overshooting. And then they all kind of look at each other, and it's like, yeah. just sons of bitches.
But that scene ends with them saying, if we haven't heard by
1850.
1850, which at that
Yes.
point is like 3 years from then,
Yes.
uh, that's when they're going to go out and search. It's like, what the hell?
I hate to unfortunately after that scene I looked over at my husband and I said that is actually when they launched the search. Historically anyway, that is actually when the British Royal Navy sends out a search party. Sadly. Yeah.
and it's like, by that point, if Franklin's wife is talking about, she can feel that,
That is a
by that point, he's already gone. And it's like, and then you see them ramping up to actually begin the search, as the series progresses. And then it cuts to, their actual situation where it's just dwindling down to the smallest number of men. And you're like, this isn't even like the Hollywood, moment where you're seeing the rescue about to launch off. It's like, no, you guys are like a million years too late.
yes. That's and you're not being dramatic. It's true. It's very true. Yeah. Let me get back to my timeline real quick. The actual timeline. Okay. So, it is according to the scenes where the crew walk to the cairn to put the messages in the rock pile. This is referred to the victory point note, which is actually it was two separate notes that were put into this cairn, and the the first one was signed by Franklin, and it was signed. One of the last things he put was "all is well," and then okay, let me see. It is dated May 1847, and then later let's see, there's one that's dated just 1848. It's the second victory point note. Reports that deaths include Franklin and 23 others, along with the ships have been trapped for 19 months. Is the reason the bomb ships were used? Yes. They are actually, when it comes to being cheap, bomb vessels, by this point in time, so the way bomb vessels are built with they tend to have a more stout frame because of the impact forces from the mortar mounted on the ships. They are naturally built to be more stout and rigid. Therefore, they were the preferred ship to use for potential ice breaking for Arctic and Antarctic expeditions. Yes, they were specifically chosen for that reason. Let me get to my actual history notes because I have notes on the show and then notes on the actual terror. So I'm trying to get through all the differences. So yeah, bomb vessels, British bomb vessels were kind of retrofitted for this reason. For in between wars, they're going to try to find glory in discovery, Arctic and Antarctic expeditions. Okay. Some of the armament, of course, is going to be taken off, but for the most part, the frames are going to stay the same. They're going to adjust some things though, because and this happens in the beginning of episode 2. James and Sir John are below in the engine room, and James specifically says that he would visit his aunt between Brighton, which is on the south coast of England, and London. And he says he was probably taken or pulled by that very same engine, because those engines that were put into Erebus and Terror were steam-powered engines that they got from, let me see here, I forgot the company, but it was a like London locomotive, London and Greenwich Railway steam locomotives. That's what they were. So they were outfitted specifically for the Franklin expedition, for the 1845 expedition. Before then, it was all sail power. There was no other propulsion for those ships. It was all sail power. So it's one of those little little things that the show throws in there for historical accuracy. And John, can you pull up that picture of Cornelius Hickey?
Yes.
I'd like to point out something. Okay, now behind him, do you see those iron pieces?
Yeah.
Those are called knees. The knees are lodging pieces that are set up horizontally. Those are referred to as hanging knees. And there are also horizontal pieces called lodging knees. Those are iron knees that were added to the Terror, I think, before this particular voyage, or it was before her previous Antarctic voyage. I'm trying to go back and see. Yeah, I think they were added in 1839. So that was before the Ross expedition, the Antarctic voyage with Erebus. So Terror and Erebus made an Antarctic expedition before this event, and Francis Crozier was commander of Terror on that expedition. So that, when I saw those, I got really excited. I'm just, so there are these little Easter eggs that are thrown in there for us history buffs to point out and geek out over.
See, that makes me really happy to hear, because one of the things that sort of gave me pause as we were getting ready to do this late, is she gonna just be really displeased by a whole bunch of incorrect stuff but is there? This is my next question.
Yes.
If there is stuff that bothered you that they got wrong.
Yes.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Okay. In the scene where Sir John and James are coming up through the decks, I believe they walk up through 2 full decks. Now, Ciaran Hinds is 6 foot. Tobias Menzies is 6'1". Those decks would not be that high with that many decks. And those men, especially being officers, would not have the covers on their heads. When you go below deck, you take off your cover. And this not only is a just normal protocol, but yes, sorry. So taking off your hat has a practical reason too. Those little brims, they can block the upper part of a beam. I'm 5'4". I have cracked my head so many times. When I'm working below deck, I tell all the crew that's working with me, if we go into a lower deck, take off your ball caps, because the brim, that's how you crack your skull open. Because you just, if you've ever served aboard a ship, if you have ever toured a battleship or an aircraft carrier or a submarine, you know they don't build them spacious. So these tall guys are as they're coming up through the decks, when Hickey comes down in his very first scene, when he comes down and he takes his shot of grog, that actor, Adam Negatis, he was also in Chernobyl. He's 5'8", so it looked like he had a good bit of distance between his head and the overhead, and I was like, that seems like a lot of room for someone who's 5'8". Jared Harris is 5'10 3/4". So now the scenes that were shot in the officer's room or the captain's room, it is believable to have that much room normally, but on a bomb vessel, they do not have a lot of freeboard. There's not a lot of ship above the water. So looking at the draft, because I have a line layout of the Erebus, and I have a line layout of the sister ship of the Terror. And I'm looking at this thing, and if you're packing 2 entire decks, and I'm trying to estimate headroom, there's no way there'd be that much headroom. So not having the hats on down below, no. And the fact that there's that much headroom. So considering the fact that the show was filmed 100% in a studio, that is, they're going to build the set to fit the height or be more comfortable uh, with the height of people, especially
also,
those guys. Those guys are tall.
And also, I'm thinking, depending on what you want the eye line to be, there also has to be room to support the cameras
Yes.
themselves, because you've got cameras being held up, or and
you
so
could put them on easily put them on a track, but yeah, I
yeah.
don't know what angle they would be going for, as far as below decks.
But yeah,
I can go on.
well, hold on. Looks like
Okay.
we have a question.
No, because there's not going to, as far as the freeboard, they're going to be built low anyway. The reinforcement from the beds of the mortar aren't necessarily going to be taken away. So heavy reinforcing timbers, if anything, are going to be added to. Again, they were cross planked. These 2 ships were cross planked before they went on the Antarctic expedition. So the pretty much the upper decks were made to be a little bit heavier, but the ship isn't going to be too top heavy because of it, because of your center of effort it's not going to throw off the stability of the ship. The engines themselves and the coal that is required to run those engines are going to help add to the ballast.
I do have to say, it's really funny to me, because you mentioned the fact that they wouldn't have been having their hats on and stuff. It's really funny, because thinking back to Game of Thrones and listening to George R. R. Martin's commentary for Blackwater, and one of his main criticisms was that they had them, like actors like Peter Dinklage without his what do you call it? Why am I blanking out? They just had him showing his face instead of any protection whatsoever, which is inaccurate. But in this situation, it's like you could just show more of the actor's face and head overall by sticking closer to historical accuracy, or not even historical accuracy, but just ship accuracy. And they opted not to do that. So really, it's just kind of backwards no matter which way you go.
I don't know if maybe they were both having like bad hair days. Hey, Keira Knightley had to wear that awful hat because she had a pimple on her forehead in Love Actually. So maybe they were breaking out.
Maybe, you know what, that could be it. Although I do not subscribe with the theory that Keira Knightley has any imperfections.
I
So I'm
I
sorry.
don't know where that was going.
I think that was just a rumor, a very horrible rumor. No, not true, not true. Okay, sorry. But yeah, it's I don't know what the reason for that would be, because it seems like it'd be easier to, if you can have them go without their big giant hats. You'd think you would go ahead and take
Now
that.
they didn't have those huge like crested hats on. Those are usually for more formal occasions. I will. Okay, let me just say, as someone who works at a museum and in historical clothing, the first time I saw any reenactors from the War of 1812, I was like, the the hats. My God, it was it was like this. And the thing is, these hats, these styles were influenced by Roman and Spartan soldiers with the large, mohawk type features, um, with the fin coming up. And then for officers, it was a transverse. Of course, in the movie 300, they're not going to make someone wear it sideways. That represented an officer in Sparta, but historical accuracy, whatever. Okay, whatever looks cool. That's what we're going with.
Which this has just reminded me, talking about sort of historical get-ups and everything. What I loved in the scene about halfway through the series when they're having the carnival, uh, and Tobias Menzies is in a Roman get-up. I thought, oh, that's a wonderful little
Oh
tip of the
yeah.
hat to
Okay.
Rome.
I'm
But
I'm sorry, John. I don't mean to break your heart, but I've never seen Rome. I've heard good things, and I did watch a stream on it, but yeah, I've actually never seen Rome.
you need to fix that. Oh, but you know what? That show will probably drive you crazy with
Oh, his is for
historical.
his sister. Jolie, I'm sorry, and Leaf, it's the KK, the pimple debate. Oh dear.
Okay, so continue on, because I felt like there was even more stuff you wanted to
Okay,
talk about.
there's the thing is there are elements of historical accuracy that the show got right, and there's things that the show either just kind of ignored or got wrong, and I can kind of understand why things are filmed the way they're filmed. Okay, so um the discussion after dinner in episode 1 where they're waiting for the gig. They're waiting for the boat to come alongside so they can get in. James and Sir John are having a discussion critical of Captain Crozier on deck in earshot of the rest of the crew. That would never happen. That is beyond taboo. Having one officer um, be critical or speaking ill of any other person of any significant rank on the ship, especially the fact that it's Francis's ship that he's doing this on, that would never happen. You could easily have that scene in Sir John's quarters, but I think maybe the show the maybe the producers wanted it to be kind of out in the open. There's only so much exposition you want to do below decks, because you want to show activity happening on the deck, the ship being under sail and the sailors working in the background, and background noise, so you have like an ambiance being set. But that particular conversation would never happen above deck.
I think I would chalk that up to the the tradition in film and television that people who aren't standing right next to you can't hear you unless it's vital to the plot. It's like whenever there's somebody on the other side of a door and you're talking really loudly on the other side of it, but they can't seem to hear a word.
Yeah.
Unless it's part of the gag where the person on the other side of the door says, "You know, I can hear you, right?"
Yeah. I'm right here. When you're
Yeah.
talking trash about somebody, I'm standing right here.
Yeah, but exactly. This right here. Sound works weird in Hollywood. But yeah, I definitely see the point of that. But at the same time, I feel like they're making a point to, even if it may not be accurate, but it's showing James's disdain for Francis, and and then having Sir John immediately say, "Don't do that."
Yeah.
I get that it wouldn't really happen, but I think that's very purposely done.
I liked the scene.
Conflict. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like the scene, but that would never happen on the deck of a ship. When Dr. McDonald is telling them about David and his illness, they refer to the 3 we left on Beachy. There were 3 skeletons found on Beachy Island in northern Canada, and these skeletons are believed to be crew members, and they died with a widely variable amount of lead poisoning. So some historians, there is not a consensus. There is, but there isn't. There are historians that will argue against that. They don't know if lead poisoning was the primary cause of death for these 3 sailors, but it is believed that these 3 skeletons were members of this particular expedition, and these skeletons were found, I think, in the 1980s.
Yeah, and
moving on.
But talking about the discovery is, and you talked about this earlier, what's really interesting to me is the fact that they found the ships after the book was written, but actually, and I think as this was in production, one ship had been found before they started, and then the other ship had been found while they were in production. And I believe that they modified some stuff to take advantage of the knowledge that had been gained.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I love that. I love the fact that there are some things that are hidden in the show, kind of, that are referencing what is happening right now. So in August 2019, just a year ago, most of the lower decks of Terror were digitally mapped. They could not get into the captain's cabin, but because of the way it's silted up, and the cold water that it sank in, that actually acts as a preservative, and it's possible to find paperwork. So they're looking in the article that I read. They're hoping to potentially find a ship's log in good condition. And before they abandon ship, in the show, it is prominently, as Francis is pretty much signing off, and he closes it, and it says, the log book of the Terror, and it's like, come on, like maybe we can find it and get some answers.
Yeah, I mean, what's so great about this is, as this stuff is continuing to unfold, and there's potentially more information coming to light, I feel the fact that this show is out there and providing that interest in it. I know I'll be paying attention
Yes.
when stuff comes out about it. It's just really interesting. Okay, so let's dive back into some more stuff you noticed.
Okay. When I think it's James talking about the good pace that they're setting uh, so far in the first episode, and he says it's not like we're rowing dracars. Dracars are longships. It's a kind of a smaller warship that the Vikings would have used. Um, oh God, okay, so all right. With that moment when Sir John comes up on deck and it's like we're in it now. um, he goes to sleep. I think it's the assumption is the night before, or maybe late at night, early in the morning. He wakes up of his own kind of on his own in his PJs and everything, and then it's like he realizes the ship is not moving. So he gets fully dressed and comes up, and it's like WTF is going on. um the fact that the ship stopped making way, it stopped its forward momentum. The second that happens, he was supposed to be woken. You when something like that happens, the captain has to be notified. The fact that he was allowed to just sleep through it, that is not good protocol at all. So that
Yeah, but it doesn't give us that great, you know, sort of
yeah,
moments of him coming out and seeing it. So I get it. Um,
exactly. And when he comes up on deck, and the fact that there's just snow and ice all over the deck, I'm just like, I would have someone's hide. Do you know what that does to the deck of a ship? All that fresh water and that weight. My, ugh. So it's like, just like, there'd be like beatings until this. Okay. this this person is one of the mates on the ships that I sail with. So, what is the source of the lead that is poisoning them? Okay, it is the a newer type of sealing that is being done on the cans. The canned goods apparently, weird enough, uh, it goes out to the lowest bidder, right? As far as uh, rations for these guys. Unfortunately, the lowest there was a reason it was the lowest bidder. What was happening was the lead in the solder was leaching into the food, and the seal being compromised was also allowing the toxin in the food to grow. Um, there, as far as I know, it was kind of like a twofold issue. So you had lead poisoning, and then you had pretty much uh, another toxic element in the food as well. But
and
yeah, it was pretty much a bad seal, bad seals on the cans.
I just want to say thank you for coming by, Richard. Um, so yeah, we're getting near the end of the 2 hours. So I will just say that I'm really sorry for making
Traumatizing me.
traumatizing you with a scary show by first like drawing you in with the promise of master and commander and then sprinting
Yeah,
this up.
I'm thinking I'm getting into I've been kind of looking forward to, getting back into Patrick O'Brien and, swashbuckling adventures. And then it's like, no, demon polar bear and and starvation and cannibalism. Yay!
I will say this probably requires a little bit of explanation, because when I initially had the idea for this stream, it was before I had considered moving the day and time of my stream. So I had thought that I was going to be sticking with Thursdays at 2:00, but my work schedule is really busy over this next month and potentially beyond. So I started to think about streams that I could just record on any day and then just put up online, so they wouldn't be live. So I thought, okay, let me think of some ideas for this month that I can do that. And I thought, oh, I'd love to do something on the Terror. I enjoyed that show. It's got ships. I'll ask Kelly if she wants to do that. But then, of course, I moved the day and everything, so we were able to do it live. But so I've got to be honest, I really didn't give thought to whether I was going to be traumatizing you, Kelly, and I apologize for that.
And the absolute crazy luck of scheduling it on September 12th, where you nailed down 2 different anniversaries. Yes, Kate, it got ships. It's got boats? Where?
Yeah. So, yeah, Amy, you missed some blaspheming going on.
I'm sorry.
Some people were saying that Keira Knightley is like not perfect, and I feel like we have to shut that down. Okay, so okay, but so yeah, but so overall, would you say you enjoyed watching the show, though?
Yes, I when I saw the show was being made, I honestly didn't know much about the event itself. So I looked up a little bit more of what actually happened, and I'm like, oh, okay. Everyone was lost. Yay. Um, just as far as that's how it goes when it comes to a lot of exploration stories. A lot of death and starvation, and throw in some cannibalism just for fun. Um, the I love all the actors, so I don't so I don't want to.
There's some cannibalism for you.
Yeah, man, Hickey looks thrilled. Nom nom nom. Just pretend it's salt beef.
Yeah, let me cycle through some other pictures I had, because
Okay.
I didn't put all of them up. This is the scene in which Sir John is running for his life just before getting eaten.
Yeah, and that is the still that is used for I guess the thumbnail on the Amazon app that I
Yeah.
watched it on. What a great expression.
Yeah, I mean, God bless Ciaran Hinds. He's great at that. And again, I actually didn't talk that much about. We mentioned the cinematography a little bit, but when they are putting Hickey and one of the Marines on trial, before Toonbot comes in and throws everything into disarray, the the way that shot. And I was about to say the time of day that they shot it, but it was all green screen. So actually,
It's still
yeah,
intense. What a great scene.
yeah,
The
it's fantastic. It's gorgeous,
Yeah.
and just the back and forth where Crozier is laying out, Hickey's crimes, and then Hickey starts to have his chance to talk, and he tries to turn everybody against Crozier, and you're not entirely sure that it would have been unsuccessful
Yes.
if they hadn't been interrupted.
You think you know where the scene is going. Um I mean, I hate to bring up the Red Wedding, but damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, that whole, as a sort of climax to an episode, just it's really brilliant because it's just pitting these characters against one another. Like you said, you think you know where it's going, and then it sort of turns on its head, and then out of nowhere, it really just turns into a bloodbath. And then we get your favorite shot with the soul sucking.
Oh. It's can I just say, like, the whole Hickey speech at the end was just bizarre.
Yeah.
The whole, like, I don't, like, he's standing there like George Washington on the Delaware. I don't know what he's just kind of like, I I this it's kind of like join the Arctic expedition, they said. It'd be fun, they said. That's essentially what he's saying in his speech. Like, I was supposed to I was going to desert in the South Sandwich Islands, but I'm stuck in this place with you, MFers.
So I'm just going to go complete psychopath, even more so than I have already. I'm going to try and take control of this creature or die in the attempt.
I'm not tempering anything anymore. It's just, this, oh my God. Yeah, it was, I was just like, this is weird. Like, they've all lost their damn minds.
And it's great because like Hickey is horrible. You hate his guts. Mm-hmm. But what an amazing character. He's just so fascinating to watch.
Can we talk a little bit about some of the like the conversation where James is talking with Blankie about the Ross expedition?
Yeah.
And Blankie pretty much is like, this is what happened. And like, that was heavy.
I don't remember the captain's name, but he says he never knew how close he came.
It's Clive Russell.
Oh, is that who it is?
Yes.
See, there's so many names thrown out in this that I can't always keep track of.
What sucks is, like, there's two different Sir Rosses. There's Sir John is Clive Russell's character. I'm guessing his son is Sir James, the guy that's sitting next to him during the meeting, and he's like, I'm gonna lead the expedition myself, and of course it shows that he does. So they call him like Sir James Ross. So it's like, wait, like, what? How many Rosses are there? What's going on? So that can be a little not gonna.
Yeah, and of course, Clive Russell is Sir John, and then we have Ciaran Hinds, who is also a Sir John.
Yeah, Sir John. Yes. Oh, there's another thing I wanted to say. Ross, son of Ross, Timid, son of Timid. When Blankie tells Crozier that what the ice will do to the ship, and he says, I've seen a ship driven up 20, 30 feet. The Terror, in an expedition to, I think, the Antarctic, it was not with Erebus, it was for an expedition with Captain George Back. The Terror was driven almost 40 feet up a cliff by the ice. And she almost sank on her voyage home as well. She had a lot of injuries. Let's just put it that way. She limped home. They pretty much beached her on a beach in Ireland because they couldn't quite make it back to England. So that was kind of a little. I was just like, I see what you did there. All right, Mr. Blankie. I see what you did there. Of course,
then when they're leaving the ship, he's like, she may yet triumph, and we're like, nope, she's not going to.
Yeah. Ain't nobody triumphing.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so my overall impressions of the show just, I remember watching, I was pulled in initially by the fact that it was a lot of actors that I really loved in Ciaran Hinds, Tobias Menzies, and Jared Harris, and the fact that it was this blend of, really from the outset it looked like Master and Commander-ish type stuff
Yeah.
with the crew and everything, and the fact that it was also, a horror story. I was like, normally I don't go in for horror, but like if it's mixed with the right genre, then it's got me. Like in the case of Alien, I love science fiction, so that's a really great combination, and the fact that this is also something I'm really interested in. So I figured, yeah, let's give it a shot, and it's just this weird, twisted. I think on the Blu-ray cover I'm looking at right now, and it's the quote on it is a mad, self-perpetuating cycle of fear, which kind of,
Can you show it? I don't know what it looks like.
yeah. I mean, it's
Okay.
the
All right.
same image that
Yes. Okay.
you're describing. Yeah. Um, and
Physical
it's
media, everyone. Physical media.
yes, buy your stuff on Blu-ray and or DVD. So, um, but yeah, I got really sucked into this, and the only thing that disappointed me was the fact that I didn't know going into it that it would be that this story would be one season and then it was done. Um, and there is a second season of the show which is called
Infamy, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I haven't seen yet. It's a completely different story. So it seems that what they're doing with this is it's going to be an anthology series and
Yes.
going forward. So they've already had a second season, and yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see if it just keeps going. So I'll eventually get to the rest, but obviously this was the one that was going to pull me in because just the fact that it's about ships and on all that stuff. So, and the fact that I love Master and Commander so much was what got me into watching this. So yeah, Anna, yes, that's it. Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Thank you, Anna. I've my coworker who I talked to, Ashley, uh, she had seen all of season one, and she has started season two, and she says it's really good. And then we started talking about um, the we started talking about the show, and I was just like, oh yeah, there's like one death that I just couldn't deal with, and she knew exactly what she knew exactly what I was talking about. She was like, "Oh yeah," because she's not really into horror either, but it was just kind of like, like it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to talk about it.
which, and it's funny because I got challenged by Amy to do coverage of horror stuff on this, but I bet you she's not going to count this either because it's mixed with
What?
another genre. She wants me to do like a classical like haunted house horror movie type thing, and she will not accept anything else. But I think Alien is a haunted house horror film,
Mm-hmm.
and if this doesn't count as horror, I don't know what does. So yeah, I'm sorry, Amy. I'm not gonna give you any more than this. As far as I'm concerned, I've covered two horror things now, and that should satisfy you. All right. So, was there anything else you wanted to uh, talk about regarding the show that maybe we didn't cover?
I feel like we didn't really get much into the Inuit, the native peoples. The I think the show did a really good job of not portraying a native culture um, as alien. as compared to what is would be considered civilized. It was bluntly put, these people live here. They know what they're doing, and they are not. Whenever they are portrayed, it was when there was a native person on screen, there was nothing fantastical or alien about them. There was nothing trying to accentuate that. There was no cheeky music playing in the background that had, bizarre wooden flutes or anything like that. It was just, it was straight up an honest portrayal of an interaction of two cultures. And when there was dialogue between two of the Netzlich people, it was just a blunt conversation. I loved the language, the fact that the language was included, and there the Lady Silence was not like a Mary Sue character.
Mm-hmm.
It When it comes to portrayal of, a woman aboard the ship, she was just that aspect, of, like, like a feminine energy versus like all this like toxic male energy. That wasn't a thing. It was just, this person is now in conflict with these people, and how are they going to resolve it? It wasn't, you're not, like, not, it's like, making a native culture not alien, but portraying it in a type of like exotic way, where it could be, oh, I'm not really sure how to put it, but it's a more honest portrayal, and it's more of a, this is not, this particular dynamic is the talking point, not the culture. It is this conflict between these characters, and this is how it's going to be resolved, and this is how it plays out. So, the conflict that they have with one another could be, just could have taken place between people in the same culture. It was just the misunderstanding of one believing in the supernatural and one not. And I'm surprised that the sailors took that long to figure out that the creature was supernatural, because usually when a sailor would see something, they immediately think it's a mermaid or a sea monster. It's Us sailors are very superstitious and and paranoid.
Yeah, I will say I also, well, I'm going to say I really like the scene, but I don't like what follows it, where you have, again, God, I'm struggling to remember everybody's names, but when it was Hickey and two other people who went out,
Irving and Farr.
yeah,
Lieutenant Irving.
and they came across the Inuits. That's how you
Yes.
say it, right? And before Hickey goes all murderous lunatic on the situation, the fact that the other guy goes down and has just this very basic conversation of asking for help, and that they immediately, without even thinking twice,
Yeah, he's like, "Oh,
give
you're
their food to him.
hungry. We have food here." And he offers the spyglass. It's that kind of portrayal where there's an honest dialogue between these two people, even though of course they're not speaking the same language. There's still an element of communication, and everything is taken at face value, and it is a very warm scene. And it was, I loved it. I love the fact that the Francis was able to deduce what actually happened.
Yeah. Well,
that he
because he knows that they, would not
he
have.
knows the people, and unfortunately, I think he saw right through Hickey.
Yeah,
He could Hickey, again, he is a seducer and he's a manipulator, and I think Francis saw that in him.
yeah, and like he didn't even have to think about it. Like almost instantaneously, he's like, "Yeah, that story doesn't
Well,
make any
when they were
sense."
trying to, when he comes back and they're like, we're going to arm the men, and he's like, which men do you want to arm? And he starts going through the list, and when he says Hickey, he's like, no,
Yeah,
no, we're not arming these people. And it's like, as soon as Hickey's name is brought up, he's like, you're not, no,
yeah.
absolutely not.
His reasoning is sound. The names he listed are not.
Yes, yes. Which men are you trying to arm?
Yeah.
Would cue John Cena. Are you sure about that?
But yeah, it was, I thought, a really excellent portrayal, and I think one of the stronger points of the show. And I love that the fact that it ends with them willing to offer him basically shelter and safe harbor, and he even says after everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just goes to show you what kind of people they are versus all the monstrous things that a lot of
Oh, when good sir is like, when he's saying goodbye to her and he's like, I wish I could take you to England and show you that we're not actually like this.
And I'm watching that, I'm like,
but you are.
I'm like, can you really make that claim?
No, we're not. We're actually good people. Where's David Mitchell? Are we the baddies? The confrontation between Lady Silence and Francis just before he starts to go through his withdrawal, where she's like, "Why do you want to die?" Because he's drinking himself to death almost, and I liked that conversation as well. She is sitting amongst all of these other very powerful men, but she seems, the words she's saying to Francis are getting through, and they seem the most powerful, compared to all the other men around Francis are honestly trying to help him. But she's putting it more bluntly. Why do you want to die? Why are you killing yourself?
And then it's following that, which is another great scene where he finally sort of breaks down and acknowledges that
I love that scene.
He needs help and he's going to have to go through this, and where he's like, the timing could not be worse. I know, but
I love the bravery that I put in my notes. Like, Francis is so brave right here in this with this move, but it's like, you've got to have balls to do that, because it's like, it's now or it's just going to get so much worse. I mean, shit gets worse anyway, but it would have been so much worse if he wasn't sober.
Yeah. Oh.
So I'm sorry, the chat is so there's talking, how can we get this booze to Kate?
Okay, so on that subject, I would say, if there's anybody watching who is like, what is going on with the chat, go ahead and head over to Here Be Dragons and look at the competition that we have going, and that'll explain everything. I also want to mention, since I think we're wrapping up here, this weekend, tomorrow actually, even though I am always on, almost always on Here Be Dragons anyway, tomorrow I will be on as a special guest for an episode of I Know That Nerd. which is just really exciting for me because I was pretty much starting off when Steven first, when he and I first became friends, and he told me to, watch his stream and take part in the chat and stuff. There was this little part of me that was like, on one day that'd be really cool if I got to be on there and he'd ask me questions, but I have no idea why on earth he would want to. And here we are about a year later, and I've maneuvered myself into a position where he can have me on. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hear that some people are working on questions for me, and I'm a little bit nervous about that. I don't know what
I would be too. I don't trust any of these jerks in the chat, man. I don't. Oh man, get ready.
Yeah. So go ahead and tune into that tomorrow. That should be interesting and fun. Yeah. So anything else, Kelly, before we finish off?
Thank you for having me on. I thought this was a lot of fun, even though I'm just a little traumatized. I am looking forward to the Master and Commander stream, though.
Yeah, and I'm very much hoping that'll be coming up in a couple weeks here. So stay tuned for that. And like I said earlier, next week, Saturday at 7 p.m., I will be talking with Amy about the Duchess. So go ahead and you can find as always, you can find the trailer for that in the description. I've put it in there. And
extended version.
Yeah.
With more fabulous Kira in fabulous costumes, most likely.
Exactly. Sorry. It looks like I'm ignoring.
No, it's I just know all of you are plotters.
Leave it. Oh, here you.
Oh. Yes. So it's one of the I have no idea where this comes from, but you're generally not supposed to whistle on board ship, because it's sometimes whistling can be used to signal other crew members, so it could be like taken as a sign as mutiny. So the only whistling you actually hear on board the ship is what's called the bosun's pipe, and you actually hear the pipe in episode 1 of the Terror as well. As Sir John is coming aboard, he is being piped aboard. That is very much like an intercom system. It is letting everyone know that someone important is coming aboard. Today in the modern Navy and the Coast Guard, they will use the pipe in a traditional way to pipe higher ranking members of any kind of service. So an admiral, a commodore, if they are coming aboard, if they are going ashore, they are being piped aboard and piped ashore. Anyways, whistling. It's referred to as whistling up a wind. And I don't know why, but at that time, it was the second mate said it has to be the youngest crew member to whistle up a wind. And they're like, just don't whistle up too much wind, because we were sailing with not much wind. So he was like, whistle up a wind. He said, scratch a backstay. A backstay is a part of the standing rigging of the ship. So it's like scratching the back of the ship. I don't know. And whistle up a wind. So I did. The next day we had a little bit more wind. Like, we don't have time to go through the ridiculous superstitions.
No, Anna, I don't know what you're talking about here.
That's exactly what someone would say if they weren't. Or if they were. The OJ lobby. That sounds so ridiculous.
It's like anybody who's not like part of our group is seeing that and they're like, what the hell are they talking about?
He's over there pushing orange juice. Watch him.
Okay. Thank you guys again for tuning in. This was great. I I'm just delighted that people, have gone in and followed us to a later time in the evening. So,
Todd, it was Wit that told me to whistle up a wind and scratch a backstay, and he didn't tell me where the heck it came from because Todd was on the ship. So, Wit did it. Again, no idea where it came from. But yeah, I'll get in, Aaron, I'll get more into some of the other the other superstitions on the Master and Commander, because there is a lot in the movie. Little Easter eggs. Stay tuned.
Yeah, there's no superstitions at all in Master and Commander, right? It's not like it's a big part of the plot.
I will talk. I'll talk more about. Thankfully, we can get more into mental health aboard ships in Master and Commander as well.
Yeah, although it's not like there wasn't plenty of room to talk about that with this either. We'll just have to devote more time to it.
Oh no, we're still getting over my mental health after after watching it. Dang it, John. Okay, sorry. We can conclude.
Okay, thanks, guys. I had a blast tonight, so thank you all for coming to watch, and thank you once again, Kelly, for coming on, even though I terrified you with this show.
It's okay. It's okay. All right. And okay. Yeah, thanks everybody, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no more horror for you in the future, I promise. Kelly. Mm-hmm. We'll stay away from that. Okay, have a great night, guys, and I'll see you next week. Or I'll see you tomorrow, and then I'll see you next week.
Right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.